Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. It's time to experience what's possible. So, what if there's something you haven't learned yet about writing that could change everything? Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we are helping the world experience what's possible. And today, what's possible with writing. I'm so excited about this new book that we have coming out. I've got a couple of our co-authors here today to help me with this mission, and I'm going to introduce them to you in just a moment. This book is called Writing, The Brave Healer's Guide for World Changers. And you guys, honestly, like when I had this moment about this book, I'm like, well, why haven't you done that one before now? Right? This thing about writing and the way that we use it to heal and transform our life and make an income. I mean, and everything in between. I have fallen in love with writing and the entire community that has joined me to both do this book together, but also be in that world of transformation. This is big potato stuff to me. So I can't wait to introduce my co-authors here in the Zoom room with me today. John Jaramillo is a leadership performance coach, podcaster, and writer working to elevate his clients and audience to the next level of their leadership performance. I've got Valerie Costa with me. She is a professional book and magazine editor who specializes in holistic and metaphysical topics. Welcome, guys. What's happening?
Thank you.
Morning.
Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you guys here today and to talk about this. John, I'm going to start with you today. What has writing meant to you in your life in general?
I came to writing not too long ago. I'd say really in the last 5 or 6 years. After I was done with college, after I was done with graduate school, well into my career. Um, it's about expression. It's about really getting out there, getting this energy. I've mentioned in my writings and in the chapter that I write for this book about my anxiety as a kid. So this is kind of expression. This is about getting that energy. For me, it's energy. And when I get into that state of flow with writing, it's really just getting this energy that maybe doesn't have any other kind of outlet out there. There's physical outlets, emotional outlets, spiritual outlets. For me, it sounds hokey, but it really is on a spiritual level. It really is putting to paper or putting to screen or to laptop, whatever the tool may be, just this energy that I have to get out. So it's really harnessing all that power and sharing what I want to share, which maybe doesn't have another outlet in my life. So I think it's the best outlet for me to really share what I can.
Think of the power of that, you guys. Like, and this is where I really focus on topics when I am teaching them that have to do with writing as this is an impactful tool. This influences people. We can take responsibility for that energy. And if we do, and channel it for good
Yeah.
and to support, and like, this is a big deal. You
Yeah.
mentioned your story about being a kid. I've heard a couple of stories about how people's writing dreams got squashed early on. Were you one of those?
No, I've met a lot of people that they were creatives of whatever type, painter, writer, whatever it may be, creatives as kids, and then the adults were just kind of telling them enough with that nonsense. You got to focus. No, I really didn't get to writing until graduate school when I was interested in the topic that I was writing about. It didn't feel like a chore, so I don't know where it came from. I really don't. I think it's when you really come across something that interests you, whether it's the innate power of the writing, which I didn't have, but it was the topics. And through those business topics that I was writing about, crafting a story, crafting a journey, crafting understanding, breaking down technical jargon for the layperson, walking somebody through it. That's the way that I look at writing. So it wasn't there as a kid. It really was through graduate school. But I mean, better late than never, right?
Exactly. I agree with you. My mom would tell you that my sister and I played library. That was our
Mm.
game, and we would line up the books, and she would have to check them out. Of course, I was the librarian, so right.
Of course you were, of course. Yeah.
I laugh every time she reminds me of this.
Mhm.
But the writing part same came later. I had to build up a little more confidence before I could really get out there and write something
Yes,
that I knew people would read. But all
absolutely.
right, so you and I'm very grateful, wrote our chapter on proofreading, which after reading your chapter, I thought, all right, I hope people realize that maybe if they thought this topic was kind of boring before, they are super inspired by what you had to say. At least I was. Give us a little bit of the why behind this chapter that you wrote.
Yeah, it harkens back to just that inability to communicate as a kid, out of shyness, lack of confidence, just being introverted. So it's harnessing that power. I say better late than never because when you finally, and I've seen it with my clients, when you finally get to the point where you're utilizing your innate tools, your innate skills, abilities, values. So when I got to it later in life in writing, like I'm firing on all cylinders and I'm still evolving. I'm still changing as a writer, as an author, improving. I'm never quite there. I'm always trying to get better from piece to piece, but the why is really that, and with so many leaders and guests on my podcast, so much comes from what we needed in childhood, what we didn't have in childhood. Anybody that's listening, whatever you're doing today is probably triggered or driven by what you needed in your childhood. I needed expression. I didn't have an outlet for expression, so when I finally found one, whether it's podcasting or in this situation writing, it's just like now I understand, like the pen is mightier than the sword. It really is, where you can sit down, write a world, write an opinion, write a value, share with the world, especially with the way the world is today. um Getting that value out there and the humanity and the writing and expressing that's why it's just driven by what I needed as a kid and then what I want to share with the world today. And I think we all have something to share, whatever your outlet may be. For mine, the biggest one is writing and podcasting, but it really is about sharing your humanity and finding it in others and in what they see in your writing.
I love the way that you kicked this off today. Thank you so much for saying yes to this project and for being
Absolutely.
here today.
Absolutely.
All right, Val, let's talk about you just a little bit. What has writing meant for you in your life?
Well, I'm kind of the opposite of John. When I was in kindergarten, the teacher pulled my mom aside and said, "This girl should be a writer." And so I was very encouraged by all of my teachers and peers growing up about my writing. And ironically, I don't do much writing now. I need to get back to it. But writing has been a part of whatever I did, whether it was working for the environmental organization and doing like the newsletters and the grants and stuff, or being a magazine editor for 8 years and writing for that, and different projects that I have freelanced for throughout the years. Writing has kind of been a central theme in my life and my career.
I love hearing that you were encouraged that young. How cool is that? I mean, the more common story is the opposite, at least the ones
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. So, okay. Um, you mentioned that you aren't doing as much of it recently. Did you have a moment where you kind of just fell out of the practice? What happened?
Well, actually, I'm halfway through writing a book, and I became a book editor. And so I'm working generally 12 hours a day editing other people's books. So that doesn't leave me any time to work on my own because I have to make a living. And I know that writing, unless you become like J.K. Rowling or one of the big sellers, that's not really a way to um, earn a sustainable income.
Yeah, I feel you there. I think a lot of people have that belief and how they watch other sort of famous writers make it in the world. And oh, for all of my writers out there, you know, what else is possible? That's what I want to leave that topic with, is that question. Right? I've seen some pretty amazing things happen, and you guys both are such a cool example of when we come together in collaboration, what we can do with writing, you know. Val, I want to know a little bit more about the why behind the chapter. You guys could have picked any story to tell, right? And you chose one of many, many, but tell me a little bit about your why.
Why I chose the story.
Yeah.
Well, because when we talked about me doing the magazine chapter, because I had experience with that, I really thought back to what made me want to be a magazine editor, because it had been a dream since I was a kid. And I was like, what made me put it on like every list until I became one? Like, what is it? What do you want to be? And I used to say magazine editor, and then I said book editor, and now I've done both of those things.
Mhm.
But it really boiled down to, after meditating on it and doing some like deep reflection, my love of magazines as a child. Like I loved magazines as a kid, and I grew up in the 80s, and so like magazines were the thing. And so I really wanted to honor that, as print journalism is kind of, you know, transitioning to more digital. I miss that feel of the magazine and those giant like Cosmos with all the perfume samples, and you open them up and that smell that just like comes up. And the, like I said, the wildly inappropriate stories that we read as children in magazines, but that really kind of shaped. Magazines had a big part in shaping who we were as Gen X kids anyway. I
Yeah.
don't know if future generations have that same thing, but it was kind of this moment in time that was captured in magazines. And so I really wanted to honor that in my story. And that's why I chose that.
Oh my gosh, I remember those moments so vividly. I loved magazines. I think we're about the same age, and I had them all. I had, so, Teen Beat, Tiger Beat, 17, Vogue, Glamour. Like I wanted them all. And then even as a little kid, help me, you guys, remember the one that was in the doctor's offices all the time.
Highlights, highlights
Oh
for
Highlights.
kids.
yeah, yeah. That
Right?
was
Mhm.
that was more
Finding,
my speed.
And then there
but you
was
just
like,
like cost.
Oh
there
yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
there Ranger Rick too? Like there was a
Oh
ring.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
and Valerie, I laughed when you talked about the perfumes and all that, because I
yeah.
remember going through my mom's magazines while I was waiting with her, and it was just like every other page, I was like ripping it open, smelling. So I get it. Oh yeah, I the '80s Gen X, the magazines, it was just, yeah, it was a hell of a culture piece that we were lucky enough to experience.
It was. So
Yes.
I remember opening them up and putting them
Oh,
on.
oh yeah. I how many of those samples did we rub on our wrists then?
Oh,
It's I like so many.
you're giving me an idea. I might have to do something weird in one of our books like that. We'll just give people a moment, a little surprise in the middle. Um,
I love it.
All right, Val, I want to stick with you for a minute for this other question of the day. And so first, a gratitude, just a big thank you to both of you for taking on the challenge I gave you, because I said, hey, I want a real vulnerable story in here, right? But then you're going to step up with your master teachings, like, and of course, magazine writing is the topic of your chapter, and you guys did this so brilliantly. So I want our listeners to understand what this book is. The stories are healing, but then you've got an entire toolkit for a writer on pretty much every subject you could think of in terms of writing. And if you want to write for magazines, you're going to want to read Val's chapters. So what's the most important thing you want to share with our listeners about writing for magazines?
Well, in my tool, I give an assignment, because that's what you do as a magazine editor. You give assignments, and I challenge people to talk to someone who holds a different belief than you do, as if you're a journalist, and to not insert your opinion into the piece. Because I mean, there's plenty of magazine fluff pieces, but if you're going to do a serious magazine article for like the Atlantic or New York Magazine, you need to be able to take yourself out of the story and report the facts about something, even if it's the facts of someone else's opinion. And so I think that what's really important in these days of social media and, everything is about like what our opinions are about things, to remember that at its core, journalism is about facts and not our opinions, or it should be anyway. It's kind of moving away from that, but I wanted my chapter to really inspire people to remember that and to hold that as their standard as they are embarking on any kind of journalistic writing assignment.
And that assignment was brilliant, Val. I can't wait for people to read your chapter, and even just for that assignment, because I had to pause there with yours and think about it, because we want to share our opinions, we want to share our viewpoint. Everything is always about us. Whatever we're doing, we want to talk about what we're doing, we want to write about what we're doing. But when you paused me there in your chapter and said, no, 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 like, let's think about this from a completely opposing view, I'm like, ooh, do I even want to do that? It was quite a thing in my mind about it. So I loved it. I loved your
Good.
challenge, and it's going to be an incredible chapter for people to read. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, John, for you on proofreading, what do you think is the most important thing you want people to know about this?
I think it comes back to the same kind of question you posed to Val and I, is know your why. So one of the pieces that I give in the tool section is know why you're writing. And that may sound very basic, very simple, but I mean, if it comes to like leadership coaching, any other coaching, before you get started, before you roll up your sleeves or take out the laptop or take out your fountain pen or whatever it is, you need to know why you're in it, because that's going to help you sustain your work as you go. So that's going to be your curiosity. That's going to be your foundation for learning the other tools, like the software to use, um, the importance of getting started. So what is it? Why is it that you're writing? What are you getting out of it? So much like the story that I shared, what is it that drives you to write? And again, that's going to inform all the work you put into it, the research you do for your work, the repetitions that you do in reading it and finding the right words and finding the right energy, the tone that you use with the reader, the cadence that you're going to use and laying out that journey and walking them down that path. So for me, the most important thing is know why you're writing, because that's going to dictate how much respect you have for that art form. Because if you just go into it and you take an assignment, say from Val, and you don't know why you want to do it, you don't know why it's important to you, you're going to come at it a little differently than if you were aware of those values that you hold and that power that writing holds for you. You're just going to see it as, sorry, Val, an assignment, but not something that's coming from you, not something that you're sharing. So know why you're doing it, and then that'll dictate how much research, preparation, what you would consider traditional proofreading, whether in a software or with your colleagues or your circle, whoever it may be. Before all that is there, you need that respect for that art form. So recognize why you want to do it.
Yeah, the why. In the big land of brave healers, it has been said your why makes you cry, meaning that's a deep purpose. It
Yeah.
is like recognizing it, you see yourself, you're the essence of who you are. And we could talk for 3 hours about these
Oh
kinds of
yeah.
things, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
but it's a big deal, right? And that's the passion and energy that's going to fuel it. So yeah, we
And I
have.
think Know Your Why has been out, was made famous by, it came out before that, but Simon Sinek and his TED Talk or whatever.
Yeah.
So we hear it over and over again and it becomes cliche. And I think people hear it and they're like, okay, cliche, and they don't really pay attention to it. But I think people really do need to stop and ask themselves, stop and step out of the work. Because sometimes we get so lost in the writing and getting prepared that we don't step back and see, okay, A, how can I improve the technical work? But also, where's my heart at? What do I want at the end of this? What do I want to provide other people? What do I want to leave people with? Excuse me.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for you guys to pick up the book. Valerie Costa, John Jaramillo, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being a part of this beautiful book. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you
Thank
both.
you for having us. Yes, it was wonderful.
So you guys may have the feeling that I know, and that is this is way more than a book. This is a very generous community. So maybe you heard something today that sparked you, gave you the goosebumps. Maybe you have a question. You're just curious about something that Val or John said. Come on down into the show notes. I've got them linked up there with their sites. Go explore. This community is here for you to answer that question, to give you the support, to chat about it, right? If you want to continue the conversation that we started today. And I am so proud of this community for being that kind of community. So thank you guys again. And we want you to hop over to Amazon now, please, and go grab your copy of Writing, the Brave Healer's Guide for World Changers. It's ready for you. We can't wait to hear what you think. Lastly, today, everyone, remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it is time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.